Hello and welcome to UzReport World News, and my name is Bahram Gaffarov. Uzbekistan's chemical structure Uzkimyosanoat said it was implementing 21 projects worth over $1.3 billion. President Shavkat Mirziyoyev was presented with information on the projects on March 29. Marifat Abdisharipova has the details.
8 projects worth about $60 million are to be completed by the end of this year. New facilities are set to replace $15 million imports and exports $30 million worth of goods if all goes to plan. Feasibility studies are currently being drawn up for 18 projects worth over $2.6 billion. Mirziyoyev's press office said the overall goal is to bring the production capacity to $3 billion. The export potential of the industry is expected to reach $1.3 billion. Some 3,500 jobs will be created at the new enterprises, it added. According to plans, the volume of production based on deep processing of natural gas is to exceed $2.1 billion. In this case, the added value would increase by 14 times. 3 large technological clusters are to be established in joint stock companies Navoiy Azot, Fergana Azot, and in the Republic of Kyrgyzstan. In particular, 16 projects worth $2.6 billion are to be implemented in Navoiy Azot, 4 projects worth $334 million in Fergana Azot, and 3 projects worth some $687 million in the Republic of Kyrgyzstan. We have allocated big money for the chemical industry. Energy-efficient technologies have been introduced. Now it's time for this industry to create added value. There are great opportunities for this. If we put in order the quantitative and qualitative indicators, the price policy in each direction, exports will grow by 5 to 6 times, said Mirziyoyev. The president also urged a reduction in the state's holdings in chemical enterprises, their transformation, and the introduction of international standards of corporate governance and financial reporting in the industry. According to Uzbekistan Statistics Committee, enterprises under the structure of Uzkimyosanoat produced $1.7 billion worth of goods last year. On the following day, Hungarian Prime Minister met with the Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev. The two countries have established an exchange of experience in the fields of healthcare, science, and education. In particular, Uzbek students received more than 100 grants to study at universities in Hungary. The University of Debrecen is expected to start its work in Tashkent. As part of interregional cooperation, Uzbekistan is intending to introduce Hungarian experience to modernize the economy and social sphere in the Samarkand and Jizak regions. A group of highly qualified experts have arrived from Hungary for this purpose.
In a bid to strengthen ties with Hungarian Republic, Tashkent hosted an Uzbek-Hungarian Business Council. The key topic of the event was the boost of investment, trade and economic cooperation.
During his speech, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Investment and Foreign Trade of Uzbekistan, Sardar Umurzakov, expressed his confidence that the forum will play an important role in achieving effective results in the future. Then the Minister of Foreign Economic Relations and Foreign Affairs of Hungary, Peter Szijjártó, noted that the heads of both states pay special attention to the consistent expansion of economic partnership in priority areas for Uzbekistan and Hungary. Following the meeting, the sides signed a number of bilateral documents. In turn, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry expressed its readiness to implement the plans in 2022 aimed at achieving practical results in supporting the business circles of Uzbekistan and Hungary. For reference, at the end of 2020, the trade turnover between the countries amounted to $109.3 million, including exports over $538,000, imports $108.7 million. As of January 2021, there are 10 enterprises with the participation of the Hungarian side in the Republic, 6 of which are joint ventures and 4 enterprises with 100% foreign ownership.
President Mirziyoyev on March 29 signed a decree providing benefits for those wishing to become a partner of state in airport management. For the implementation of the relevant work for a period of 3 years, the following benefits are provided.
Private partners are exempt from payment of customs duties for imported special vehicles, road construction equipment, machinery, raw materials, spare parts, components, technological and design documentation, software, recycling fee for imported vehicles and special equipment. Private partners and airports pay income tax, including income tax withheld on the payment of dividends, in the amount of 50% of the established rate. Property tax rate for airports is reduced by 50%. In November 2018, Mirziyoyev ordered the division of Uzbekistan Airways into several companies. He said that the outdated and non-transparent management system, which combines the functions of the state regulation and commercial activity, was an obstacle in implementing a modern management system at the enterprises of the industry, ensuring their financial stability and profitability. The excessive monopolization of the civil air transportation, including the operation of ground infrastructure, has led to significant delays in the provision of services in this area, as well as the unprofitability of individual airports in the country, he said.
Uzbekistan plans to start mass vaccination of the population against coronavirus on April 1st, 2021, according to the Deputy Head of the Sanitary and Epidemiological Service, Nurmat Atabekov. Those who will be vaccinated first include people over 65 and medical personnel.
According to Nurmat Atabekov, some 330 people will be vaccinated using the AstraZeneca's Covishield vaccine. On March 17th, Uzbekistan received 660,000 doses or 2 doses per person on order as part of the global COVAX program. Another batch of AstraZeneca vaccine is expected to be delivered in early April. On March 29th, Uzbekistan registered 2 lethal cases from coronavirus, the highest number year to date. The number of daily infection cases has also been soaring in recent days, with the highest number at 196 registered on March 28th. A day later, according to official data, this figure decreased to 146. Uzbekistan has so far registered over 82,000 infection cases, 628 deaths and over 80,000 recoveries.
Starting from the 2021-2022 academic year, Uzbekistan plans to introduce dual education in the vocational training, a system that combines apprenticeships in a company and education at a vocational school in a single course.
A new measure is intended to help train, develop and employ the mid-level personnel. Annually, Uzbekistan's Ministry of Higher and Secondary Specialized Education plans to determine which education institutions are to conduct the training of personnel. Selected educational institutions are to admit students following established quotas. Students are to be trained at least 2 days a week.
Uzbekistan's central bank has finally disclosed statistics on the quantity of gold sold over a decade. According to the report, Uzbekistan exported 100 tons of non-monetary gold in 2020. The least sold gold was in 2012 with 10 tons, and the biggest amount was in 2019 at 110. Average prices at that time also changed a lot. For example, in the same 2012, an ounce cost $1,668.9. In 2015, it fell to $1,159.8, and in 2020, it increased to $1,771. The Karakalpak youth and women are to be backed by the program by 3 UN agencies, funded by the UN Multi-Partner Trust Fund for Human Security for the Aral Sea region. The program is designed for 2.5 years and covers the period until the end of June 2023. It also affects vulnerable groups such as people with disabilities and labor migrants. In general, 183,200 residents of Muynag, Bozatau and Kongrat districts of Karakalpakstan to become beneficiaries. An online film festival, Nowruz Film Days, was held in Brussels by the Embassy of Uzbekistan and the Belgian Cultural and Educational Complex, BOZA. The virtual event featured 4 films, including the work of an Uzbek film producer, Rashid Malikov, entitled Sabot, which has received special recognition. The film tells about the difficult raid of a man who passed through the harsh crucible of Afghan war. The online film festival aroused great interest among the European audience. The cultural event of Brussels was commented by the researcher of the College of Europe, Vita Kobeila.
Нашему вниманию было представлено 4 лучших региональных кинокартины.
Among the presented films, I enjoyed the film Sabat, which is highly recognized not only in its country but also in Europe. The film captivates with its authenticity in showing the distinctive culture, architecture, and traditions of Central Asia. It was really engrossing as well. I could feel the life of the characters.
Most countries are striving to reduce the ecological damage. Uzbekistan is no exception, and the country has started importing e-cars in large numbers. Now it's intending to introduce the use of special license plates for electric vehicles. The plates are planning to be painted in green, where the territory code is indicated. Electric cars are to enjoy advantage when entering the central parts of cities. Considering the environmental safety, the vehicles are to be provided with benefits in state registration and technical inspection. The issuance of license plates is scheduled to begin on 1st June. Until then, the replacement of the plates with new ones is to be made free of charge. Uzbekistan saw a sharp rise in demand for electric vehicles over the past month. The country imported 85 new cars worth $1.5 million in just 2 months of current year.
Because you will learn that on May 25th of 2020, Mr. Derek Chauvin betrayed this badge when he used excessive and unreasonable force upon the body of Mr. George Floyd.
Opening statements in the highly anticipated murder trial of Derek Chauvin, the ex-Minneapolis police officer accused of killing George Floyd last May, began Monday with the prosecution laying out what it alleges Chauvin, who is white, did for over 9 minutes as Floyd, a black man, lay on the ground, handcuffed.
That he put his knees upon his neck and his back, grinding and crushing him until the very breath, no, ladies and gentlemen, until the very life were squeezed out of him.
Jerry Blackwell, a prosecutor with the Minnesota Attorney General's office, also played the widely seen cell phone video taken by a bystander in which Floyd can be heard saying multiple times the phrase that has come to symbolize the Black Lives Matter movement. Chauvin, wearing a gray suit and, like others in the courtroom, a face mask, took pages of notes on a legal pad as the dying moans of Floyd and the yelling of horrified bystanders filled the courtroom. Chauvin's lead defense attorney, Eric Nelson, said in his opening statement that the former officer followed his police training.
The use of force is not attractive, but it is a necessary component of policing.
Chauvin and 3 other officers were arresting Floyd on suspicion of passing a fake $20 bill at a grocery store nearby. Nelson also used his opening statement to highlight Floyd's drug use and underlying health problems.
The evidence will show that Mr. Floyd died of a cardiac arrhythmia that occurred as a result of hypertension, his coronary disease, the ingestion of methamphetamine and fentanyl, and the adrenaline flowing through his body.
The courtroom in a tower in downtown Minneapolis was ringed Monday with concrete barriers, barbed wire, and soldiers from the state's National Guard. Nearby businesses were closed and windows boarded up due to fears of arson and other property damage that occurred after Floyd's death. The Minneapolis Police Department fired Chauvin and 3 other officers involved in Floyd's arrest. Chauvin has pleaded not guilty to second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. He faces up to 40 years in prison if convicted on the most serious charge.
63-year-old José Roberto Ignacio spent much of his life ferrying the sick to a hospital in the quiet Brazilian town of Piratininga. Now, 1 week after entering that same hospital with COVID-19, the retired ambulance driver was buried in a cemetery just 2 blocks away. His son looked on as 4 men in hazmat suits carted his coffin to his final resting place and sealed his tomb.
All his life he worked to save people, but in the hour that he needed help, there was nothing for him.
Ignacio's son, Roberto, told Reuters that his father died waiting for intensive care. He was just one on a long list for an ICU bed, but doctors told the family there were 70 people already in line. Bauru, the nearest major town, has 50 intensive care beds, and all were full.
Você vê uma pessoa morrer.
You watch a person dying, and you can't do anything about it.
Across the country, Brazil's health system is buckling, with over 6,000 people waiting for an ICU bed, according to government data. Despite the crisis, President Jair Bolsonaro continues to ridicule stay-at-home measures. He told Brazilians to, quote, stop whining about the virus death toll, now over 300,000, the world's second highest behind the United States. On the front line, doctors in Brazil are exhausted, understaffed, and under-resourced against the relentless tide of infections.
People have been talking for months about the risk of the public health system collapsing. Sadly, that moment has come.
Dr. Fred Nicasio said the hospital he works at had 28 coronavirus deaths from March 15th to March 23rd, which he said was a lot for his hospital, and that all the patients died waiting to be admitted to an ICU.
Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro made 6 cabinet changes on Monday in the biggest ministerial reshuffle since he took office. The move comes as pressure mounts on the far-right leader to address the COVID-19 crisis that's killed over 300,000 in his country. Foreign Minister Ernesto Araújo was among those who left the government. He's one of Bolsonaro's most loyal allies, and a China hawk who faced criticism from lawmakers for failing to guarantee additional COVID-19 vaccines from Beijing and Washington. Bolsonaro moved his chief of staff to the defense ministry and placed a federal police officer, who's close to his family, in charge of the Justice Ministry. The founder of a Brasilia-based political strategy firm, Creomar de Souza, said the defense ministry shift was particularly unexpected. De Souza added, quote, Bolsonaro is under enormous pressure and reacted to regain the political narrative. Meanwhile, Brazil is suffering its worst phase of the global health crisis, with deaths topping 3,000 a day, and a new variant raging through its population. Bolsonaro has notoriously railed against lockdowns, sowed doubts about vaccines, and pushed unproven treatments. Brazil trails only the United States in total COVID-19 cases and deaths.
A selfie boo for the newly vaccinated. Indians pose for photos after receiving their inoculations against COVID-19. After a slow start, India has ramped up its immunization drive, opening more centres, simplifying the process, and turning to social media to spread the word. More than 3.2 million people got vaccinated on a single day last week, one of the world's highest rates. Mumbai resident Ramesh Akari hopes to encourage others to get the vaccine.
I took a selfie, and I'll tell everyone that I came here and got myself vaccinated for coronavirus, and I'll ask others to do the same.
There's a lot at stake, and not just for India. The country, home to nearly 15% of the world's humanity, has confirmed more than 11.8 million cases since the pandemic began. State officials are confident they can speed up the vaccination campaign as they add more doses to their arsenal. The country is currently using 2 vaccines, Indian-made doses of the AstraZeneca shot and a homegrown one from Bharat Biotech. It may soon approve Russia's Sputnik V vaccine. Health authorities hope to immunize at least 300 million people by August. A temporary hold has also been put on all major exports of the AstraZeneca shot made by the Serum Institute of India. From April, India will expand its vaccine campaign from the elderly and vulnerable to everyone over the age of 45.
The grandmother of former U.S. President Barack Obama, Sarah Onyango Obama, died at the age of 99 on Monday in a hospital in Kisumu, Kenya. The former president tweeted about his grandmother Monday morning, saying she was, quote, affectionately known to many as Mama Sarah, but known to us as Danny or Granny. We will miss her dearly, but will celebrate with gratitude her long and remarkable life. Sarah, who was the third wife of Barack Obama's paternal grandfather, was a Kenyan educator and philanthropist who promoted education for girls and orphans. She was honored by the United Nations with an award recognizing her work to support education in 2014. In his memoir, Dreams from My Father, former President Obama often referred to her as Granny and described meeting her during his 1988 trip to his father's homeland of Kenya, where their initial awkwardness and communication struggles eventually developed into a warm bond. She attended his first inauguration as president in 2009. She is expected to be buried on Tuesday.
Performers are back on stage. some in safe bubbles. Live music is slowly making a comeback in the Netherlands, Spain, and the United States. But these concerts are experiments, and the revelers are guinea pigs, hoping to prove how events might safely be opened up for the public again. Amsterdam's biggest music hall, Ziggo Dome, welcomed Dutch DJs and a crowd of 1,300 strangers dancing next to each other, many with their masks off.
I really enjoy being here again. Finally, a festival where you can move again. I've missed it recently. It's so cool to be here.
But behind the scenes, it's a little less rock and roll. It was a carefully orchestrated event. All guests needed to test negative for coronavirus 48 hours in advance and were urged to take another test 5 days after the event.
Wat ik net heb ondergaan hier is een test.
What I have just undergone here is a test that must show whether you are positive or not. And that is one of the conditions to participate in one of the field lab events that will be held in the near future.
Te mogen bezoeken en ik ga aankomende zaterdag.
Inside, they were divided into 6 groups, all with different guidelines on social distancing, face masks, and with varying degrees of freedom to move around. Each guest must wear a tag which tracks all their movements and contact that they make. The data on their behaviour will be used by government advisors to inform decisions on possibly easing the lockdown in the months to come. The dance festival is part of a series of government-backed test events which also include a business conference, 2 soccer matches and a comedy show, all with different rules for different groups to see what works best. In Barcelona, this rock concert served as a pilot event. 5,000 people were allowed in without having to observe social distancing, but with face masks on. Pre-concert testing was offered at 3 locations across the city, carried out by 80 nurses. Test results appear roughly 15 minutes later via an app on their phones. Those who don't get the green light here get turned away with a full refund. The test and a mask were included in the ticket price.
It was quite good. At first, I was very nervous because I was scared to be with so many people and you had to do the antigen test and all that. But at all times, I felt very safe. The organizers have done a very good job. We kept distances.
Estoy muy contenta y muy animada.
American rock band The Flaming Lips had a creative solution, putting themselves and their audience in protective space bubbles. The group performed 2 concerts in January in Oklahoma, where audience members danced along while enclosed in plastic bubbles. There were 100 bubbles, each holding 3 people, and came with a speaker, fan, bottle of water, towel, and a sign to show stewards if guests got too hot or needed to go to the bathroom.
U.S. plane maker Boeing said on Monday it sold 100 new 737 MAX 7 jets to longtime customer Southwest Airlines, in its biggest order win since the aircraft safety ban was lifted in the United States last year. The order signals the budget airline's show of confidence in Boeing's 737 MAX jets, ending speculation of a shift to jets made by European plane maker Airbus, which would have been a massive blow to Boeing. The COVID-19 outbreak compounded troubles for the plane maker, forcing it to cut production after the nearly 2-year grounding of the 737 MAX family, following fatal crashes in 2018 and 2019. Under the deal, Boeing could build more than 600 new 737s for Southwest through 2031. Each 737 MAX 7 carries a list price of roughly $100 million, though such jets usually sell for less than half their official value due to market discounts, aircraft industry sources have said. Shares of Boeing were up 3% in morning trade on the news.
With belongings slung over their shoulders, cooking pot and sleeping mats, about 2,000 people who fled from their homes in Myanmar to neighbouring Thailand are being forced back at the border. That's according to activist groups. Thai authorities denied this on Monday, but a local official said it was government policy for the army to block them at the border and deny access to outside aid groups. Video obtained by Reuters showed refugees in the state of Karen boarding boats under the watch of Thai soldiers. Reuters reporters tried to access their village but were stopped by authorities. Thousands of people fled Myanmar over the weekend after the bloodiest crackdown on anti-coup protesters. Fighter jets attacked villages near the border where many ethnic Karen live. Thailand state media reported that refugees were in a safe place on the fringes of the border, but the chief of a neighbouring Thai district told a local meeting that those fleeing should be blocked, and that NGOs and the UN Agency on Refugees must not be allowed to have direct contact. Then, on Tuesday, more than a dozen people were allowed to cross into Thailand to receive medical treatment at a border village. One was hit by bomb shrapnel from an air attack before fleeing into the jungle. Overnight, another grim milestone. More than 500 people have been killed since the military seized power on February 1st. That's according to activist group, the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners.
Like many other Jewish families who hosted Seders this Passover, it was an advancement in modern medicine that made a centuries-old tradition possible in person again. Now fully vaccinated, 74-year-old grandmother Esther Greenberg got to hear how delicious her matzo ball soup is in person with her family around the table once again. It was a welcome return to some semblance of normalcy this Passover, a spring holiday to commemorate the biblical story of the exodus of Israelites from Egyptian slavery. Esther and her husband Bob are among the 42% of all American seniors already fully inoculated.
Let's start with the shank bone. The shank bone is the sacrificial lamb.
For fully vaccinated Jewish families like the Greenbergs, there was one thing for certain on the menu that they sorely missed last year via Zoom: hugging.
I can't wait to hug and kiss everybody I haven't been able to do since last year. And looking up and seeing my Passover table, not with everybody, but with, it's like I'm learning. Think about everybody who's there, not everybody who's not there.
CDC guidance released in early March said those who have been fully vaccinated can meet without masks indoors in small groups.
The S&P 500 ended nearly flat on Monday, with bank shares falling amid warnings of potential losses to the tune of billions of dollars from a hedge fund's default on margin calls. Still, optimism over the economy limited the day's declines, with the Dow rising roughly 100 points, while the S&P slipped and the Nasdaq fell. Nomura and Credit Suisse are facing billions in losses after a U.S. investment fund, named by sources as Archegos Capital, defaulted on margin calls, putting investors on edge about who else might have been caught in the situation. Susan Schmidt, Aviva Investors head of U.S. equities, says so far this is a contained event.
Well, everyone immediately jumps to concerns over the ripple effect. How does this then ripple through the rest of the market? What are the impacts and implications of this? Right now, when you look at it, we do seem to think that this is just an isolated event. You're going to have interim dislocation, but things should right itself. And that's because we've had a contained event. We've had a hedge fund that was highly levered. We're seeing positions unwind as a result.
Media companies such as Discovery, Viacom, CBS, plus the U.S.-listed shares of Baidu, all linked to Archegos, ended lower, extending recent losses. Meanwhile, shares of planemaker Boeing rose, helping lift the Dow after the company said on Monday it sold 100 new 737 MAX 7 jets to longtime customer Southwest Airlines, in its biggest order win since the aircraft safety ban was lifted in the U.S. last year.
So far, these have been the latest news for today. Goodbye. Take care.